Now it's running. Yeah, okay.
Do you know what we're here for?
I don't want reality.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Thanks, Jeff, for the question.
Help! Help! I'm being betrayed!
What now?
I mean, this woman is dangerous, ladies and gentlemen.
There's no point in you betraying your future self to gratify your present self. It's a stupid game.
Your name, please?
A fucking bitch.
What now?
question.
I don't want reality. I don't want reality.
What now?
Phrasing.
I see that you know your judo well. Here we go.
Science. Go hot right now.
Arguably the greatest work of nonfiction of the 20th century.
It's science.
Close it up just like my wife's vagina.
That sound was Looney Tunes using one of the channel points rewards. Has declared himself first. Well played, well played.
Close it up just like my wife's vagina.
Oh, never occurred to me. Interesting. Just crazy enough to work. Yeah.
This is from 12 Rules for Life.
Do you know what we're here for?
Looney Tunes with a donation of 1 bit to the Twitch. Thank you, Looney Tunes. What's the channel name? It's in the left-hand corner here. GalacticStreamLord. 'Tis I. Okay. Well, we meet again. It's good to see you, space fans. Hope your days and or nights have been going well. But you've got a lot to look at here tonight, so you better buckle up. It's got a wild ride to take through the abyss. So yeah, just for people's edification, on Twitch you can in fact donate, get access to special emotes by subscribing, as I'm actually monetized there, as I've been trying to get monetized here. But just so you know, oh wow, gifted subscription. What was that from? Looney Tunes has gifted a tier 1 sub to Donald James. My god. Thank you. What was I saying? Oh, right. Those notifications will only show up when you donate on this screen. What other screens? Let me think. Oh, they'll show up here at the bar. But not while we're talking about the news here, just so we don't get distracted. But yeah, awesome. Took no time for people to start finding the Twitch, which is great. Omega Star also finding the Twitch. Look at that. Alright, well, let's see, what is next? Ah, yes. Time for us to look at some news here in America. First, we'll start with this. Our jury has reached a verdict in the Hunter Biden gun trial.
Read of the Second Amendment?
But that Hunter Biden has been found guilty on all 3 of those felony counts. We're just getting that in. We have our reporter now. That's confirmed by BBC as well. Guilty, Hunter Biden, on all 3 of those felony counts. Again, this would carry a maximum of 25 years in prison. Legal experts saying he won't face nearly that amount of time, but that indeed Hunter Biden, the son of President Biden, has been convicted on all 3 of those felony counts. That is the verdict of this jury, 6 men and 6 women. It took only about 3 hours of deliberations to reach that verdict. Many legal experts felt that the evidence in this case was really overwhelming, brought by the prosecution. What they were able to prove, apparently, now that the verdict has come in, was that Hunter Biden was indeed addicted and or using illegal drugs during the period when he purchased a gun. He then lied about that addiction and that use on a federal form.
Oh no, he lied on a federal form. Who else has been lying on federal forms recently? I'm trying to think, Oh, that's right.
Illegal.
The purchase of a revolver. That is the extent of the charges that Hunter Biden has now been convicted of. Again, that news just coming in. This, again, a historic trial, an historic verdict. The son of a sitting president convicted for the first time of a felony in a federal courthouse. All 3 charges. Hunter Biden has now been convicted. We will wait to hear from the jury itself. They'll be reading out the language within the courtroom. We do have some of that language, and we know that there's 3 counts here. The first one, and I can just read out what we believe to be what the...
Hold on, I just realized we have 20 likes already. I have no idea how that's even possible, as we just started. Hold on, that's an 8. Okay, I have no idea who 8 is, but remember that number. And a 7. 8 and 7, okay. Okay, right next to each other, huh? I don't know if they'll be right next to each other on the board, but hold the phone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I still forgot to do that part of my job. Okay, 7 is Archer. 8 is Astrid Farnsworth. Not Farnsworth. What's her last name? Oh, god dang it. Is it Farnsworth? Maybe I'm losing my mind. I gotta look this up. Do I have that wrong in my head? It's Astrid Farnsworth, right? Yeah, Astrid Farnsworth from Fringe. Okay, very nice. Oh, I better do it on the other screen as well. Hold the phone. There we go.
We will say the first count is charging the defendant with making a false statement in connection with acquisition of.
By the way, Omega Star, I saw that you used 1 bit. I appreciate that. Already, multiple donations here today. Impressive. Just truly fantastic. Took no time at all. Wasn't expecting any of that.
Firearm with and that is the first charge. Now, count 2, charging the defendant with making a false statement with respect to information.
Yeah, Shakespeare's got this right. We are, in fact, playing a StreamLord News Jazz Club D&D campaign.
Required to be kept in records. That would be the second charge, and the third one, the defendant would be charged with possession of a firearm by a person who is an unlawful user or addicted to a controlled substance. That will be some of the language that we expect the jury to be reading out in front of the judge and indeed in front of Hunter Biden, who will be back in that courtroom to hear that verdict. We saw him leaving the courthouse just a few minutes after 9 o'clock when the jury was called back in. He's now back in.
Okay, so there has been no actual sentencing yet. That will be going on later, but this trial went by very quick. I think it was less than, I think it was like a week and a half. I don't think it was actually 2 whole weeks for the trial and the deliberations. Immediately found guilty. What will happen in terms of jail time or other things like that, I'm not sure. I have heard a lot of skepticism around him actually going to jail. Oh, hey, Donald James with the 100 bits. Thank you, Donald. Thank you very much. I've lost my train of thought. Oh, yes, that's right. So I'm not 100% sure whether or not he will be getting... What is that? Is that another gift subscription? Who is that? Is that Looney? My God, Looney has gone Looney Tunes over here. Gifting another tier 1 sub to Jerry McLean. Jerry, you've just received a gift sub from Donald. Wait, no, I'm sorry, Donald. Looney Tunes. Looney Tunes 9000. I got distracted while trying to make a point here. Oh, yeah, so now you have access to I think, unlimited Jessicas. You might have unlimited Jessicas, Baculas, other things like that, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, what was I doing? Yes. So yeah, I don't know exactly what's gonna happen here with regards to sentencing, of course. I think it's really anybody's guess on this one. I mean, if I were forced to guess, I would say maybe like house arrest, but who knows? I mean, it's really up to the judge once it gets to sentencing. There can be recommendations made, but beyond that, not clear what will happen here. Oh, look at that. Unlimited Jessica's already flying out from Princess Monocle. Oh, wow, and Looney Tunes just subscribed to tier 1. Good God. Look at all these things happening on Twitch. Wasn't expecting that. I feel like this is, what is this, my second multi-stream now since getting back to all of this? Okay, let's go to this. This is a really unfortunate story. Not sure I missed it. Not sure how I missed it up until now, but this is from 3 days ago out of NBC LA, where a gunman has shot 6 people, killing one of them at a party.
LA County Sheriff's deputies are investigating a deadly shooting in Compton. Multiple people shot at a gathering last night.
NBC4's Anastasia Olmos spoke to one neighbor who heard the gunfire. She joins us live now outside the sheriff's station in Compton with more details. Anastasia.
That's right, guys. One man did die, and we spoke with a neighbor who tells us that he was in his 20s, and he is the son of the woman who owns the home where this party was taking place. He was one of 6 people shot in the backyard last night, and deputies, they are still trying to identify a shooter. Now, this...
Why is this the story every time? It's always We're still trying to figure out who it was that did all this. With all the resources, you'd think, my God, they maybe would know some more things. Oh my God, another gifted. Oh my God, now we're getting close to a hype train. This is insane. So, what is happening? Thank you for the third gifted sub here, Looney Tunes 9000. Who was that to? Oh, Megastar. Good God. Just wild. What was I saying? I was going to say something else. And now I've forgotten it. I could have sworn I had I had something I wanted to say here. Too much stuff happening. My brain can't handle it all. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Because of all this, it reminded me of the fact that I forgot to upload more emotes today. Because I still have, I think, maybe 7 slots for tier 1 subs on Twitch. So people could be just swimming in emotes. I did say I was going to upload Buddy Jesus on a raptor with a pride flag. Still haven't done that one, so that is on me. I will make that happen. Too many things been happening lately for me to stay on top of it all somehow. Excuses. StreamLord, be better. Okay, what's next? Look at that, Bernie Barbie. Bernie Barbie up in the mix. Okay. Oh, it's weird looking at both chats simultaneously with this multi-stream chat. I'm gonna have to get used to that. Or I'm just gonna have to figure out a way to look at both chats simultaneously. Okay, let's look at this one next. This is from very recently. This happened right before I started streaming, basically. This is coming out of Atlanta, where 4 people, including a gunman, were shot at a food court in Atlanta. You'd think you'd be safe eating some food, but no. This is America.
Rid of the Second Amendment.
Okay, some developing news that's happening right now in Atlanta, where police are investigating after 4 people, including apparently the suspect, were shot at a busy food court in downtown Atlanta. A pretty big building complex that's right in the middle of the city. You see some of it there, some of the aftermath of the scene. With the area locked down for hours, Priya Shrithar is in Atlanta with the latest. Priya, what's going on?
Hey, Holly, yeah, this all unfolded around 2:17 in the afternoon. It was a very busy time in that food court. A lot of people who work downtown in the buildings around here were in that food court having lunch. We spoke to many witnesses who said it was a very chaotic scene. There was a lot of misinformation as to exactly the number of shooters. But here's what we know so far. The mayor of Atlanta and the police chief just conducted a press conference, and they told us that a 34-year-old suspect got into some sort of altercation with a 47-year-old male inside of that food court. It escalated into a physical interaction, and then the suspect pulled out a handgun and shot that male. And in the process, he also shot a 69-year-old woman and a 70-year-old woman. An Atlanta police officer who was off duty.
Wow. Wow. Well, this is America after all. Good God. Whoa, that's a lot of emotes on Twitch right now. Okay, at least in this case, they got the suspect. I feel like we never say that at the end of these sorts of discussions around gun violence in America. I guess like 1 in 20, the cops do their jobs and find the guy. Maybe I'm being ungenerous. I don't know. Okay, let's go to this. This is from 11 hours ago, where apparently still going on at UCLA are protests against the administration not divesting from the funding of arms to Israel, and police have arrived about 11 hours ago and arrested at least 25 pro-Palestinian protesters at UCLA.
At about 2:17 this afternoon, we started receiving a combination of radio traffic and 911 calls reporting shots fired inside the Peachtree Center Mall at the food courts. We believe at this time that a 34-year-old suspect armed with a handgun had entered the food court, and after a brief altercation with an individual, he shot that individual. And then that perpetrator...
Wait, sorry, I don't know how I just went to this one. I meant to go to this one. I didn't even realize I had two stories for this one.
At least 25 people were arrested during a demonstration on the campus of UCLA.
You can see the crowds of protesters surrounding the UCLA police station. This happened overnight. They were waiting for those in custody to be released. NBC4's Lauren Coronado is live on campus with the unrest that led to the arrests. Lauren.
Lynette, good morning. This is where the last of the protesters gathered and where a lot of them were arrested as well. We're right outside Dodd Hall. I want to show you what it looks like. It's quiet right now, and you might be able to see some of the security guards inside the hall. This is the first time we've seen that since protests started here, but I do want to show you what it...
Now, I couldn't find... oh, here it is. There it is. This is actual footage of when the police came in. Go forward. Oh, fuck you.
Like overnight, dozens of protesters continued their call for the UC system to cut financial ties with Israel because of the Israel-Hamas war. At one point, they were chanting the names of people who have died in Gaza. The group gathered a little after 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, attempting to set up camp at multiple locations on campus. Police say the group blocked access points, tampered with fire safety equipment, and vandalized university property. By 8 o'clock last night, police say 25 people were arrested. All of this, keep in mind, during...
Why do they need all these guns for peaceful protesters? Anybody got answers for that one? Hydration has been called for. I see that. I will hydrate. Thank you for using your very precious galactic space money to keep me hydrated. Now, in regards to a couple things I saw here on YouTube chat, I saw Donald James X say that you donated 100 bits on the Twitch, but there was no notification alert. I'm not sure, was it on this screen when you did it? The fact is if I'm over here, right, I have them turned off. Like when we're actually looking directly at the news and other videos, I have the notifications turned off for these particular screens. But then when like we're here, or we're at the pool, or at the bar, they should all work here, as well as I think at the Galactic UN. Wait, do I have them set up for the? I don't have. Oh, I thought I had them set up for the Galactic UN. Maybe I don't have them set up for that. That's my bad. But when we're actually looking at stories directly, those aren't going to go through. But I did see it. I thought I said something about it, but if I didn't, thank you very much once again. Also, Vincent Morales, yeah, unfortunately, YouTube won't allow you to gift memberships. Only Twitch will, because YouTube doesn't want to monetize me, even though I now have over 6,000 watch hours in the last 90 days, I think. But no, why would you want to monetize somebody who's got metrics like that? That would be silly. That would be silly. Okay, what was I doing? Ah, yes, let's move on quickly to this, which I think when I saw this title, I was like, oh my god, that is fantastic. This is from a day ago, where according to CBS Evening News, Trump met with his probation officer for the first time ahead of sentencing. That's right. Trump's probation officer. You know, he's probably got to, pee in a cup, tell him that he's been staying off drugs, not associating with criminals. Oh boy, that might be tough. He's got a lot of criminal pals. This could be difficult. Okay, let's move forward here. Wait, why are you being a dick to me right now, YouTube? There you go.
Today, Donald Trump met with a probation officer after being convicted of 34 felony charges in New York. In a month, he will face sentencing. CBS's Robert Costa joins us now. And Robert, this was something we've never seen before.
We have not. Good evening, Nora. Former President Trump spent the day at Mar-a-Lago, his home in Florida, but he did participate in a probation interview with his lawyer, Todd Blanche, at his side. The session lasted under half an hour, and Trump answered questions about his personal background, criminal record, and employment history. Officials will now prepare a report for New York Judge Juan Merchan that includes a sentencing recommendation.
Oh, God.
Meanwhile, new CBS News polling shows a majority of likely voters feel that Trump's conviction not a major factor in November's election. The top issues being the economy.
Before sentencing? I am not sure. I'm honestly not sure, Jerry. I'm not that familiar with the criminal system on that level, but it would make sense to me since he's been convicted. I guess the assumption is that because he's been convicted, that since he's now a felon, he needs a probation officer, regardless of what the outcome of the sentencing hearing is. You would think the probation officer would be somewhat required. I don't know. But also, this is something I'm just trying. I'm trying to think about it right now. Like, is that how that always works? I don't know. The second I started saying it, I started questioning. I'm like, man, I can't actually say that for sure. Either way, it just amuses me thinking of Donald Trump, meeting with his probation officer and having them ask him about it. What he's been up to. Have you been associating with any of your characters from your past felonious activity? And the fact is, I feel like he is with most of them. Your stepdad is a probation officer and Trump got treated like royalty. Interesting. I'm not sure in what way you mean, but I guess I don't doubt that. Used to exclusively Twitch. Wow. I'm an exclusive Twitcher. I was never an exclusive Twitcher. Or at least not like in terms of my watching. It's always multifaceted in platforms. Aside from in streaming, partly because multi-streaming is something of a project, if you will. Okay, let's look at this. This is from a day ago. A new video has come out from inside of the vehicle of Nancy Pelosi on January 6th, which was released by the GOP-controlled House Administration Oversight Committee. Let's listen to what Nancy had to say on January 6th after leaving the Capitol.
We have responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous. You're going to ask me in the middle of the thing when they've already breached the inaugural stuff that should we call the Capitol Police? I mean the National Guard? Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?
They thought that they had sufficient resources.
That is not a question of how they had. They don't know. They clearly didn't know, and I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more.
So yeah, I mean, that was Nancy Pelosi, pretty angry. She's usually not that fired up, I would say. But I guess I could understand the vibe, considering the fact that they were fleeing Congress at the time. And yeah, we talked about it on, well, not us here, but I think in many places, people were asking the question, why was the National Guard not called sooner, with all of the aforementioned sort of like social media buzz, among other things, and intelligence that was there. And honestly, you know, Donald Trump was definitely at fault in this particular circumstance to some degree, even though Nancy is there claiming responsibility. I would say the administration that is supposed to be handing over power should have, I don't know, maybe assured that peaceful transfer of power happened. But no, that did not go that way, as we all know. Okay, let's quickly look at this. This is very recent news as well. I have very little sort of context to give to this situation. I'm basically finding out with you. I did watch this video already, but I just like I have very little to add to what they're about to give you here. This is from CBS News from 3 hours ago, where ICE agents apparently have arrested 8 people with suspected ties to ISIS.
Agents with Federal Immigration and Customs Enforcement have arrested 8 people with suspected ties to ISIS. Officials tell CBS News the individuals were from Tajikistan and were arrested in New York, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles. They allegedly crossed the U.S.-Mexico border last year and this year. Back in April, FBI Director Christopher Wray warned of human smuggling operations at the border that could bring in people with potential connections to terror groups. Our Errol Barnett joins us now. Errol, what do we know more than those bare bones I've just given people?
Well, John, all of this breaking this afternoon, and it is apparently the success of an effort by ICE, that's Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, the FBI, the Department of Justice, as part of this heightened threat environment. As far as we understand, these 8 men from Tajikistan, this is a Central Asian nation, came into the U.S. both this year and last year via the southern border. And as far as the available information we have access to, they were permitted to enter the United States and were here legally. However, officials had reason to continue to follow and investigate them.
Okay, I just figured we would watch this one just to keep us up to date on this and at least somewhat informed. The fact is they entered the country completely legally, and so, you know, if anybody says it's because the open borders or something, no, they took all of the legal actions necessary to enter the country legally, and honestly, it doesn't sound like they've actually committed any crime, from what I understand, aside from potentially having links to ISIS. There is no clarity on the actual motive for the arrest, aside from that, right? Whether or not there was some sort of attack being planned doesn't seem to be clear. Doesn't seem to be clear at all, which makes me question the validity of such an arrest, unless they're somehow wanted internationally. Didn't hear any of that, so not entirely sure what's gonna even come of it, honestly. But it does seem like something to at least be aware of. I also didn't know that ICE would be used for such a thing, but I guess as they came in as immigrants, I guess that I honestly have no idea. But seriously, fuck ICE anyway. Alright, let's move on to this. This is from 6 hours ago. We're gonna get Bernie Sanders here to talk us into a little segue into medical related stuff here real quickly. This is Bernie Sanders on how the pharmaceutical industry is ripping off the American people.
The American people, whether they are Democrats, Republicans, or Independents, are sick and tired of paying by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. The American people are sick and tired of being ripped off by giant pharmaceutical companies who make huge profits every year while charging us outrageous prices that the American people cannot afford. A few months ago, the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, the HELP committee that I chair, held a hearing on the extraordinarily high prices of prescription drugs in the United States. And this is what we learned. We learned that Merck, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies...
By the way, just so you know, because I see you trying to use Nightbot commands in Twitch. Now, Nightbot is set up for Twitch, but it does not have the same commands. I have to merge them.
In the world, made $14.5 billion in profits last year, charging Americans struggling with diabetes $6,900 for Januvia.
This is disgusting. Okay, this is wildly just. This should be this should be fucking illegal.
Illegal.
Okay, like what in the actual fuck? Charging Americans 33 times as much for a drug in the country in which they were funded to do all the research for making the drug, as they're being, as people are being charged in France, or what is it, 8 times as much as people in Canada? I mean, it is just wrong. This is just price gouging. This is, oh my god. These companies should be nationalized.
When the same exact product can be purchased in Canada for $900 and in France for $200. Here you go. $6,900 in the United States, $900 in Canada, $200 in France. This is not a generic. This is the exact same product. We found that this same company, which, by the way, could afford to spend $7 billion last year on dividends and a $52 million compensation package for its CEO, $52 million for its CEO, charges Americans struggling with cancer $191,000 for Keytruda, while the same exact drug can be purchased in Canada for $112,000, $91,000 in France, and $89,000 in Germany.
This is disgusting. I'm going to point this out just in case anybody's going to be like, oh, well, currency differences or something. No, these are all being priced in dollars. And this is cancer and diabetes, really? Come on. Really? Charging American cancer patients twice as much as you're charging people in Canada?
Keytruda, $191,000 US, $112,000 Canada, $91,000 in France. And it's not just Merck. This is Merck, but it's not just Merck. Our committee also discovered that Bristol Myers Squibb,
Jesus Christ,
a company that made over $6 billion in profits last year, charges patients in America $7,100 for Eliquis, the popular blood thinner, when that same exact product can be purchased for just $900 in Canada and just $650
this is insane.
in France.
10 times as much?
$7,100 US.
And then to be charging cancer patients 3 times as much just because no one's stopping you? I mean, come the fuck on. This is disgusting. People who are struggling with cancer should not be getting gouged by multi-billion-dollar multinational companies who pay like near zero in taxes. Probably pay less taxes than all of us. And it's just disgusting. And the fact is, he just goes down the line. He just goes down the line for like a good 30 minutes or 20 minutes or something like that. From Eliquiz to Opdivo to Wegovy to Ozempic to all the other sorts of big drugs right now, and it is just disgusting. And the fact is that Medicare is having to pay these prices as well. American, like, like they're draining the coffers of Medicare by, and vicariously the taxpayers who are funding these programs to enrich themselves. Just disgusting. Okay, what do we got next? Oh yeah, all right, we're staying on medical stuff really quickly. This is from PBS NewsHour from 3 hours ago, where the bird flu outbreak at dairy farms is continuing to raise more concerns about the virus spreading. Now, from my understanding, it's still just being transmitted. Not just, but, well, I guess that's really the only way to say it. It's at least only being transferred from animals to humans, and it's not yet being transferred from human to human, right? Which, if it were to become transmissible human-human, that is when things would really become very problematic. But there are still a lot of concerns around this, regardless of that fact. So I figured we should probably look at this.
The H5N1 virus, also known as bird flu, is spreading rapidly among dairy cows. It's been found in over 85 herds across 12 states. At least 3 farm workers have now been sickened by the virus. And while public health officials say the risks to humans remain low, concerns are growing. William Brangham has more.
So how serious is this threat? And are we doing enough to keep our eyes on this evolving virus? To answer that, we are joined by...
By the way, we're only 1 like away from a 3rd support character right now. I just wanted to make you all aware of that in case one of you had somehow forgotten to use that thumb for what it's intended for.
Bright. He's the former head of BARDA, which is the U.S. government's lead agency for developing countermeasures for public health emergencies. Rick Bright, thank you so much for being here. You have called this a, quote, dangerous inflection point that we are in right now. And you recently wrote, quote, that if we keep ignoring the warning signs, we have only ourselves to blame. What are the warning signs that you're seeing right now, and how are we ignoring them?
Well, William, thanks for bringing more attention to this crisis, this situation. We're seeing more and more animals, mammals in particular, infected with this virus, and clearly it's sustained ability to infect dairy cattle and spread from cow to cow. And we know that people are really in close contact with these mammals, and the more mammals are infected, the more contact we have with them, the more risk we have of infecting people.
Yeah, so this is definitely a development, right? From what I understood, it was just, you know, the fact that it's starting to be seen in the cows as well. This is definitely going to wind up causing more potential in terms of, what do you call it? Like evolution of the virus.
And we're starting to see that happen over the last couple of months with 3 human cases.
So we've seen these several farm workers that you mentioned. The CDC mentioned that this most recent farm worker, the one in Michigan, exhibited...
Oh my god, I forgot about putting that in. GeoDragon. Good point. Do I have time to do that today? Maybe. Yeah. We might talk about that real quickly. I don't have anything prepared for it, though.
Symptoms than the others had. Why is that particularly troubling?
Well, it's really important to understand that to spread this virus efficiently from person to person, it's going to have to get in the respiratory tract. And this latest infection in this patient showed that the patient had respiratory symptoms, meaning he was coughing, for example. The 2 prior cases only had an eye infection. And it's much harder to spread a virus from an eye infection than it is from a respiratory infection when you're coughing. And so that is really an important development causing great concern.
And we have not yet seen any transmission from a human to a human. All these cases have thus far been 1 or more animals to 1 human, correct?
Well, William, that's where I'm really concerned when I talk about we're not doing enough about it, is we really don't know how many humans have been infected with this virus. And to date, there's been very limited.
That gives me some concerns myself. I see that we have 30 likes, so hold on. What is that? 14. 14. Where's my thing? Okay. So if I gotta write this down before I even do this. Let me write this down because I'm just gonna forget this again. Label support character, but number. Okay. 8. Oh, 14 is Mork. I think this is the second time we've gotten a Mork, even though it's only been a couple streams since I brought in the new support characters. Okay.
To almost no serology testing done among any of the cases, the close contacts on the farm or their family members. So it's really hard for us to know how many people have been exposed and if there really is any human-to-human transmission or not.
And how do you explain that? Why is it, given that there are certainly enough researchers like yourself within the federal government who understand the potential here, why isn't that we're not doing more testing?
Well, we're finding that it's not always a case of not having enough tests in this situation, but we have tests at the CDC, for example, but the problem is getting access to the workers to test them. So there are a number of issues and barriers that we're encountering, and some of those have to do with the workforce itself. A large part of the workforce on the dairy farms are undocumented immigrants, and there's...
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. We have capitalists to thank for that, essentially. And since they are undocumented, the people running the farms don't seem... I mean, they're not giving them health care. They don't have to. And, well, now this situation is complicated by that. Oh, God. Fact is if we would just give these people citizenship, it wouldn't be the same situation. We would be talking about this differently. These people could be getting tested by, I don't know, the CDC or something. Oh, hey, I see the bit. Thank you for the bit, Looney Tunes. I can only see the bits. Here, I'll show you what happened. Well, actually, can I do that right now? Here, yeah. All right. Watch the computer. Can I do this while I'm streaming? This is the question. Yes, here we go. This is how I do this. So, I'll show you. Okay, so, this is just going to be a test alert, but, for instance, if you were to redeem applause on the channel points rewards, as you can see on the computer screen, it shows up, the sound happens. But if I'm not on this screen, or if we're not at like one of the fun screens, it won't show up. Like, the one screen where your Twitch alerts will not show up is here. It's right here where we're actually, like, looking at the news videos and stuff, just so I can stay focused when I'm doing that. But aside from that, when I'm at the desk, when other places, I think I have it set up for most of them. So it should work at those times. Sorry for the confusion. Okay, now back to focusing on stuff. Where next? Where next do we go? Okay, yeah, let's look at this from a couple hours ago, where apparently Oregon has increased its state minimum wage by 50 cents.
Checks in Oregon are about to go up. The state's minimum wage is climbing 50 cents on July 1st. The jump in pay happens every year after state legislators created an automatic schedule of annual increases back in 2016. It's based off of inflation using the Consumer Price Index. The state has 3 separate minimum wages, really depending on the county. Those in the non-urban counties will make $13.70 an hour. The standard wage will jump from $14.20 to $14.70 an hour, and the Portland Metro wage will increase to $15.95 an hour. Back in January, Washington's minimum wage also increased from $15.74 to $16.28 an hour. That's a more than 3% increase from 2023.
So yeah, let's be real though. 50 cents if you work a standard 40-hour-a-week job is $20 a week. So enjoy that. Don't spend it all in one place, even though a hamburger costs like $16 right now. Looking out for workers is popular. Yeah, no, exactly. And the fact is, I'm glad that they're doing that, because, you know, even though it's incremental, on a state level, increasing the minimum wage will at least, hopefully, doesn't always work out this way, but it will hopefully put pressures on employers to raise wages. I mean, you'd like to think that's the case, at least. I do have some doubts about whether or not that will have the effect I would like it to. But at least there is some evidence that it may happen. They love pissing on our legs and telling us it's raining. It's so very true. So very true. Yeah. Okay. What is next on our list? Okay, yes. Let's look at this. This is just some quick tech news. It's from a day ago, where apparently Apple is bringing ChatGPT to its iPhone amid an AI push at the company. They'll be integrating ChatGPT with Siri, apparently. How could that possibly go wrong?
A U.S. congressional.
We're going to have some incredible updates to our platforms.
Apple unveiled a long-awaited AI strategy at its annual developer conference on Monday, aiming to become the face of generative AI for its users and reassure investors it hasn't lost too much ground to Microsoft. The company will integrate Apple Intelligence across its suite of apps, including Siri. The AI features will allow users to summarize text and generate other content, such as personalized animations to wish a friend happy birthday.
Just provide a description and you'll see your Genmoji appear.
Apple also announced a partnership with OpenAI to integrate ChatGPT with its devices. Those will be available later this year, and more AI features are set to follow.
You'll be able to access ChatGPT for free without creating an account.
Okay. So instead of just giving you the top Google search results, now Siri will be integrated with ChatGPT. Whether this will be good for any particular reasons, I am not sure. But I figured while we're talking about it. Oh, I forgot to talk about. Oh god, we're gonna have to do that medical debt thing later. It was a good suggestion, GeoDragon. I just don't have anything prepared for it. But yes, I saw that and somehow forgot to add it in. That is a good story. But let's look at this from about a month ago from BBC News, asking the question: how big is AI's carbon footprint?
And you're watching The Context. It's time for our weekly regular segment, AI Decoded. Welcome to AI Decoded. Every week in this program, we take you deep into the world of artificial intelligence. And what we've tried to do is focus these programs on one particular theme. So last week, we looked at the advance of AI on the battlefield. Tonight, we're going to consider something a number of you have raised, and that is AI and energy, or more specifically, the energy that AI consumes. There are climate experts who are warning that the advance of artificial intelligence could lead to an 80% increase in our global carbon emissions.
Well, let's start with sustainability, because that cloud that AI models live on is actually made out of metal, plastic, and powered by vast amounts of energy. And each time you query an AI model, it comes with a cost to the planet.
That is Sasha Luciani, lead climate researcher at the AI company Hugging Face. She's going to be joining us from Montreal in just a moment. How much energy are we using? Well, according to this report from Vox, AI is already consuming as much energy as a small country, and we are only at the beginning. The Next Web says this is where our two existential crises collide with one another: the climate crisis and the exponential growth of AI. Can one help solve the other, or will it exacerbate the problem? Here in the studio.
Okay, hold on. We can't watch this whole thing. It's like 30 minutes long. But I figure we would listen to this woman, Sasha Lane.
Well, let's bring her in. Sasha Luciani. She is the lead climate researcher at Hugging Face, which Priya really likes. And she spent nearly a decade looking at data storage and machine learning and how this all contributes to our energy consumption. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Right, before we get started, maybe I could just frame our conversation with an image that you sent us, actually, that for me really underlines just how expensive our digital usage has become. So here is Google's annual energy use, 18.3 trillion watts. That's 10 or 15% of that is going towards AI. And here's what the Republic of Ireland uses in any one year, 29.
So they're about 95% of Ireland's energy usage yearly.
3 trillion watts. So one company, Sasha, is now consuming about 2/3 of what a small country uses each year. And yet I don't hear governments talking about that problem.
I think it's because AI is really a horizontal. It's not like your typical vertical, like agriculture, transportation, and it actually affects all industries, anything that uses AI, anything from navigation to web search. And so I think governments don't really know what bucket to put it in. And when you don't know what bucket it goes in, you tend to kind of let it slip through the cracks.
Yeah, and this is part of the problem, because most people in our government are woefully under-educated on technology, right? I mean, they may have people working for them to understand it, but I mean, if you recall the hearing, the Cambridge Analytica hearing, and the sort of questions like Congress was asking, like Facebook and all the other like witnesses during that hearing, it was just blatantly obvious that they really didn't understand how the internet even works, or even maybe just basics of like phone shit. Like it really concerned me. That hearing really concerned me and kind of opened my eyes to just how computer illiterate most of our Congress happens to be. Another reason not to have lifetime appointments to SCOTUS. Jerry makes a great point. From across the pond. Remember the TikTok? Oh, yeah, that's right. The TikTok hearing was also quite a fiasco. That's a good point. Okay, now, actually, somebody in Twitch chat mentioned something that I was going to do, and completely neglected. However, we need to have something of a discussion. Where did I put this? Oh, did I delete this one? You know what? Maybe I have. Let's do it this way. Let's see. It's a good reminder, though. Okay. What do I play for this? Yeah. Alright, folks. We got a very serious discussion to have about a goddamn epidemic across the entire world. Where unused Twitch Prime benefits are going into the abyss. It's money that you could be taking directly from the pockets of the man that you see here, Jeffy Bezos. This guy thinks that he's super great. But in fact, he's an asshole. And the best way for you to get back at him is to use that goddamn Twitch Prime benefit that you get from your Amazon Prime subscription. Tell him, hey, you don't belong in space. Take some of this money and give it to StreamLord, because he deserves it more than you. And you know what? If you already have stopped using Amazon, I don't blame you. Probably a good decision. However, if you do have that that Amazon Prime account, well, you get a free Twitch Prime sub every single month that you could be using to support the Galactic News Network. Now back to the important shit. Ad break time. Okay, now let's get back to the news. It doesn't want to allow Looney. Looney is allowed in Twitch. We will allow that for sure. Okay. Now, let's move along to some very climate-related stuff. First, though, let's talk about this one. I had no idea this was a thing, but it sounds like something that shouldn't be allowed. This is from a day ago from a channel called Earth Justice. The dangers of seismic airgun surveys.
The oil and gas industry is profiting by setting off explosions in one of the world's biological hotspots. This is called seismic airgun surveying, and it's used to search the ocean for oil. A single ship can blast every 10 seconds, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for months on end. The airguns are like mini cannons, and the blast can exceed 235 decibels. Most of this is happening in the Gulf of Mexico, home to some of the world's most endangered species. The blast can inflict permanent, even fatal hearing damage on whales, dolphins, even affect the plankton that's the foundation of the ocean food web. The sound waves can be heard across the entire Gulf. This near constant level of noise can mask vital calls that marine mammals depend on to survive. The Biden administration has a chance to rein in this harmful activity. Unfortunately, it issued a new rule that would still allow extensive seismic testing in the Gulf of Mexico. The
Jesus Christ. This shit should be completely unallowed. The fact is, we need less. We need none. We need no oil expansion. We need no more drilling. Stop it. Stop looking for more. And meanwhile, who knew that they were literally causing whales and dolphins and things to go deaf just to find oil? Guess what? We have other ways to power things. Let's do that instead. They tried adding Prime to your credit card twice. Wow, rude. If you're not asking for Prime, don't give it to me, please. Thank you. Let's go on to this. As fire season in California is getting off to something of a banner start, I guess you might say. I figured we'd talk about this a little bit. This is from 3 hours ago, coming out of CBS Evening News, discussing the return of residents to paradise 6 years after the deadly campfire. I don't know if you all remember the fire that happened in Paradise, California, but it was absolutely massive and caused just a horrific level of devastation.
So far this year, nearly 42,000 acres have burned in California wildfires, with last week's Coral Fire the biggest at 14,000 acres. And that puts 2018's Camp Fire into perspective at more than 10 times the size of the Coral Fire. It was also the state's deadliest. Nearly 6 years later, victims of the Camp Fire are still putting their lives back together, whether they chose to rebuild or start over somewhere else. Here's CBS's Jonathan Vigliotti from Paradise, California, with tonight's Eye on America.
95% of Paradise surrendered to flame in the 2018 Camp Fire. The once lush landscape covered in pine trees stripped bare. But from the ashes, a new breed of American pioneer was born.
Hi, oh my God. It's so good to see you.
Kylie Warble and her daughter Ellie were one of the first families to return.
A lot of people don't want to come back here. I had to stay here.
We first met the Warbles back in 2019, 6 months after the firestorm destroyed everything. They barely escaped with their lives.
Why are you crying?
Because it's so sad.
Why are you smiling, bro? Why are you smiling? That is the most inappropriate smile I've ever seen.
Why are you crying?
Jesus Christ, dude. Come on. This girl's entire life was just burned to the ground. That's why she's... At least use a different face, please.
Because it's so sad.
What's sad?
We're talking about everything that happened to us.
Between then and now, how has life for both of you changed?
Even though we lost everything in the fire, it's nice to have something new.
You heal every single day. It's nice to get back in our hometown because then it, like, you get a fresh start on life.
And thousands of people have come back for a fresh start. In fact, Paradise was the fastest growing city in California for the past 4 years.
It is very strange to me that people would go back to rebuild in the ashes. It's a strange choice. Although, according to some, because of the fire having happened, the town is now, I guess, technically safer. Because of the fact that there's no more trees to catch fire, I guess. I guess that makes sense to me, but it weirds me out. It genuinely weirds me out. If you ask me to go move into a place that is sitting on the ashes of the former house that stood on whatever property, I would be very skeptical about it, to be perfectly honest. Maybe that's silly. I don't know. Did somebody say that they're voting for Trump? I didn't hear that. He's just helping the child relive the most devastating thing that ever happened to her. It was actually, yeah, and that footage was from like directly after it. It wasn't even like years later. It was like, it seemed like it was within a short period of time. It was like, hey, tell me about how shitty that was. Beaming smile. Okay, dude, tone it down. Okay, let's go on to talk about more current stuff. This is from a day ago, where a report has found that Los Angeles is the most disaster-prone county in the country. Which I found fascinating. Odd. Wouldn't have expected Los Angeles.
Here in Southern California, we enjoy warm weather, plenty of sunshine, amazing beaches, and beautiful mountains. But with the good usually comes some bad. According to a new survey, we live in the single most disaster-prone region in the entire country. The report comes from ClaimGuard.org, a nonprofit that tracks issues important to insurance companies. They rank Los Angeles as the most disaster-vulnerable county in the nation. Riverside, San Bernardino, and Orange also rank in the top 10, with San Diego and Ventura both in the top 20. The reasons are what you probably expect. Southern California gets more earthquakes than any other region in the country. We also have to deal with fires, floods, landslides, droughts, heat waves, cold snaps, and the occasional tropical system. The survey also found many of our neighbors here in Southern California have a more difficult time than others getting access to emergency health care. And the cost of rebuilding after a disaster is usually higher here than it is in most other places.
3 recent attacks by cow elks in Estes Park have some people on alert. Colorado.
Hey, settle down. I'm not done talking about that. So yeah, I mean, it didn't occur to me. All of those things that they were listing there, but you know, I guess I forget that, you know, like for instance, like it's on a major fault and other things like that. But I think disasters, I think like Florida or like the Midwest from like tornadoes and things like that. Yeah, no, Stefan, exactly. I was thinking like Florida or Texas or some of the other places that we've been covering recently. Nope. Apparently it's Los Angeles. Okay, now let's go into the middle of the country here. Talk about a couple of things happening in Colorado first. This one is from 3 hours ago, where apparently Colorado Parks and Wildlife have been discussing the recent elk attacks in Estes Park.
3 recent attacks by cow elks in Estes Park have some people on alert. Colorado Parks and Wildlife calling this unprecedented to have just so many encounters like this. And this really is the time of year when elk are protective over newborn calves. Your reporter, Olivia Young, updates us tonight from Estes Park.
This is where a woman just walking her dog was attacked by an elk on Friday. Colorado Parks and Wildlife say she startled the cow elk and tried to run away, but it knocked her down, stomped, and kicked her. It's the 3rd elk attack in Estes Park in 10 days. CPW says it's calving season and cow elk are known to charge perceived threats to their babies, but this number of attacks is unprecedented.
But actually having cow elk stomp people and make that physical contact with humans and 3 times, all kind of in the same area of Estes Park.
Okay, does this fake blur bother anyone but me? Because honestly, it really does bug me. Like the after effect blur, or like the whatever they're using, Final Cut or something. It bothers me. I'd much prefer somebody use a lens to blur out the background.
Is certainly unusual.
CPW has no evidence that the 3 attacks were by the same.
It's pronounced Estas. This presenter keeps saying Estes. So whose fault is that? I was just going by what they were saying.
Animal. Van Hoos says they would not consider euthanizing the elk in a case like this, as aggression from cows protecting babies is considered normal behavior. The agency is monitoring the attacks and considering what could be behind them.
It's most likely a combination of things like more people are in Estes Park, especially during this time of year. Estes Park is beautiful. Elk live here year-round, and in the calving season you see more elk in town, and then that creates less space for calves to be and less kind of safe space for calves as well.
The previous 2 attacks involved area children who were charged and stomped, one riding her bike and another at a playground. All 3 victims had to receive medical attention. CPW warns everyone in Estes Park to be cautious around elk until calving season ends in early summer. Make sure you give them a wide berth and keep dogs on a leash.
Yeah, maybe don't fuck with the elk. Who would have thought elk were somehow dangerous to to humans? Wouldn't have been my first guess. But hey, stay safe out there. Honestly though, if we don't stop encroaching on, you know, the natural wildlife, well, things like this are gonna probably keep happening. I said Estes. Did I say Estes? That's possible. That's very possible. Okay. Now, also in Colorado, there is a brush fire that fire crews are attempting to put out, or were attempting to put out. I'm not sure if they've managed to get this under control yet, but this was from only 5 hours ago, where apparently large brush fire was burning near a place called Bar Lake. I'm not sure entirely where that is.
We begin with breaking news. Our newsroom tracking this fire this afternoon. If you see smoke in the air, this is where it's coming from. This is video copter shot of a fire. It's burning near 132nd and Piccadilly in Brighton, just east of Bar Lake State Park. The details are limited. 3 acres have burned so far, and structures are threatened. Firefighters are using brush trucks to battle those flames. We'll let you know if we learn any more.
More than 20 million people in the Southwest are under heat alerts as
The park is the elk's home. Yeah, exactly. Jerry gets it.
More than 20 million people in the Southwest are under heat alerts as triple-digit temperatures threaten the region. Highs today will reach 104 in Phoenix and 97 in Sacramento, but you know what? It gets hotter in the coming days. Yeah, this is the beginning. For more on the forecast, let's bring in meteorologist Molly McCullum from our partners at the Weather Channel. Molly, good morning.
Good morning, Anne-Marie. There's no hiding the fact that summer is here now, and it's here to stay as we're watching heat build in across the lower 48 for the next couple of days. In fact, by Wednesday, 106 million of us above 90 degrees. Meanwhile, in the Sunshine State, not a lot of sunshine this week because we're watching repeated heavy downpours, all courtesy of really intense tropical moisture that's being steered to the north. What that's going to result in is not just Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but all the way through Friday, seeing heavy downpours that likely will ruin some of your beach and vacation plans. A little bit more optimistic of a forecast in the Panhandle.
Yeah, and so I actually have some footage of what's happened as a result of all of this. Here's from 3 hours ago, where heavy rain brought flash flooding to Florida. And also there is, oh wait, do I not have this? Did I not add this story? God damn it. I suck. Oh no, there it is. There it is. Flash flooding, Florida, please.
Tonight, millions of Floridians are bracing for flash flooding with storms that could bring a month's worth of rain in a matter of days. Right now, travelers flying in and out of Miami International Airport are being hit with delays and cancellations, and many roads are a flooded mess. CBS's Manuel Bojorquez is in Miami, where it's going to rain all week long.
Tonight, tropical rainstorms in Florida are packing a punch. In Holiday, Florida, rain totals reached nearly 4 inches as roads there filled with water. The front end of the Chevy Impala became submerged on the side of the road. These men were driving by and helped push the car of another driver who got stuck.
Yeah. Does not look fun in Florida right now. France is also flooding. I actually didn't hear about that one. Not shocked. We've heard about a bunch of abnormal flooding happening in Europe. I don't suck? Thank you. I appreciate that. But I did forget a video. Somehow. I didn't add it to the right playlist. It's not here. But I guess what I'll say is that all of this is part of potential tropical storm that is, I think, like it just entered the Bahamas region. Although there isn't a lot of likelihood that it will turn into a hurricane or even a tropical storm necessarily, but there is a large system in that area that storm watchers are looking at, keeping track of in the case that it does amplify. Okay, now let's go further south to Amazon. Well, not the Amazon, Brazil, technically. Not the Amazon. This is from 8 hours ago. According to Reuters, quote unquote, an inferno. The largest wetlands in the world are on fire. Usually I don't associate fire with wetlands, or vice versa.
Fishing guide Emilton Brando is walking on what he says should be flooded land. Instead, it's dried to a crisp. Brazil's Mato Grosso do Sul state, home to the Pantanal wetlands, is being ravaged by fires.
It's a huge area.
Pantanal was supposed to be flooded at...
That looked humongous. This is like aerial footage. This has got to be out of a helicopter. I guess it could be out of a drone. It could be a drone as well. But either way, this is a huge area. Good God.
Grosso do Sul state.
Yeah, this has got to be way the fuck up. Like, at least like 1,000 feet.
Home to the Pantanal wetlands, is being ravaged by fires.
Pantanal was supposed to be flooded at this time. It's known as the largest wetland in the world, and now we see it here. It's like a desert, an inferno, fire everywhere.
With a wall of...
So usually this entire area is flooded because it's a wetland. However, it is shockingly, not wet, even though it's a wetlands. And the fact is Brazil, at least the southeast portion of Brazil, got absolutely dumped on by rain. But it's not, it wasn't over the entire country. And this spot is just incredibly dry, leaving the entire ecosystem to be at risk. You know, if a wetland doesn't stay wet, I point out a lot of the things that live there suddenly leave or die.
Choking off the other side of the field. Brando helps farmer Clayton Jose save his cattle. The ranch is accessible by boat, but the area where the cattle are stuck can only be navigated by horse due to the nature of the wetlands.
We're trying to take them to the other side of the bay so they have a better chance of surviving. The way the fire is coming, it could surround them and they could burn to death.
There was a 980% increase in the number of fires in the Pantanal through June 5th, compared with the same period last year. That's according to satellite data from Brazil's National Institute for Space Research. Those figures are raising alarm bells as the region heads into the riskiest season for wildfires, which usually starts in July and peaks in August and September.
So it's not even at the peak of fire season right now. And yet, they have a wetland that's on fucking fire right now. Seems really antithetical to the idea of fire season. And you heard it from her. It's not even at the peak. Peak doesn't start for another month or longer. Oh God. Okay, yeah, let's look a little bit more at what's happening in Brazil with regards to these wildfires. This one's from Al Jazeera.
Turn our focus now to Brazil, where wildfires are expanding in the world's largest tropical wetland that's been hit hard by drought. The Pantanal wetlands are in central West Brazil. They cover an area of 42 million acres, and Brazil owns 80% of it, while the rest is shared between Paraguay and Bolivia. And satellite data shows a 980% increase in fires in the Pantanal this year, and that's the highest number since 2020, and that was the worst year on record. While nearly 320 million square meters of wetland have been destroyed, they're home to jaguars, tapirs, caimans, anacondas, and giant anteaters. And another strong drought is expected this year after a wet season with rains 60% below average.
This is horrifying. Brazil is one of those places that I think of as having just an abundance of water, right? Because of the Amazon rainforest and the, the river, all of that, the massive river systems and lakes and stuff they have around here, and yet somehow an entire portion of the country, which is supposed to be always wet, is dry and on fire. 60% less rain, 1,000% more fires. That is disturbing. Imagine being a bird that is this is the place, like you're a migratory bird or something. Yeah, no, totally. That would be fucked.
Essa época era para estar alagado, o Pantanal tá alagado, né?
Pantanal was supposed to be something known as the largest wetland in the world, and now we see it here.
Parecendo deserto,
like a desert,
inferno, fogo para todo lado.
Fire everywhere.
E agora
now it's very dry.
E é através dessa
due to climate change.
Dessa mudança climática, a gente já sabe. Chega a tardezinha já não tem mais
you're
visão.
No longer able to see the horizon to navigate and work with the boat.
Fica difícil.
It's hard to breathe. It's hard for newborn
criança
children.
também, recém-nascido. É
The
difícil.
heat gets
Calor, cada
stronger
vez
and
mais.
stronger.
O Pantanal já é calor. E aí fica calor, seco,
Pantanal is
fumaça.
I don't know why they would make that too different.
O Pantanal já é calor. E aí
Pantanal's
fica
already
calor,
getting
seco,
hot and hotter,
fumaça.
drier with smoke.
O clima fica muito
The weather gets very bad. Yeah, okay, well, those are a lot of the same footage that we watched, but just figured we would kind of drive the point home on that one. Alright, what else do we have left to look at here? Okay, one last environmental story before we take a break. This is from 7 hours ago in Chile, where Humboldt penguins could face extinction, according to experts.
Experts are warning a penguin population along Chile's central coast is on the path to extinction after a survey found a dramatic decrease in numbers. A survey of 2 islands in the area last year detected 842 Humboldt penguin breeding pairs or active nests. This year, they found just 1 breeding pair. Veterinarian Paul
Yeah, that's shocking. Let's hear that statistic again.
842 Humboldt penguin breeding pairs or active nests. This year, they found just 1 breeding pair.
So usually they find 840 active breeding penguin pairs, and instead there's just 1. I would say that's a reduction by about 99.9%. 8% or something like that. And that's incredibly problematic for this particular species of penguin, I'd point out.
Veterinarian Paulina Ars specializes in penguins. She says island surveys over the past decades have either shown a decrease or the same level of penguin and nest populations. None has seen an increase.
Maybe they relocated to a cooler area. It's possible. It's possible. But yeah, PB does ask a good question. Which area?
This increasing trend will continue and can reach a more drastic scenario, which would be the extinction of this species.
Javier Meza is the head of biodiversity conservation at the National Forestry Office, CNF. She says a, quote, perfect storm of threats has wreaked havoc on penguin populations and other wildlife.
There was the avian flu plus the El Nino phenomenon that shifted all the food towards the southern zone. And therefore, in the entire northern Chile, reproduction dropped to almost zero.
I didn't even consider that. The avian flu affected the penguin population. Oh, God.
Levels. And on top of that, many penguins died due to these two causes, bird flu plus the El Nino phenomenon.
Anthropic causes like sea pollution and habitat destruction or disturbance are also among the penguins' main threats, says president of the Safari Conservation Foundation, Diego Penaloza. Looking at an X-ray, he sees a hook inside a penguin's throat and a fishing line inside this penguin's mouth.
Oh, it's horrific. Well, looks like it's that time again. Time for a little space intermission. Well, if you haven't already, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. It really helps out. If you'd like to help out even more, well, you got one very good option, which is going to my Patreon and becoming a galactic producer, where space benefits unseen by the rest of the galaxy await you. Now, if you're not a fan of Patreon, I am now streaming on Twitch as well, so you can donate to the stream through that. With the normal Twitch methods, subs, bits, things of that nature. Alright, well, grab yourselves a drink, maybe a snack, and I'll be right back. Okay, I am back. Let's see. Alright, global news time, but let's start with a little bit of space news, as usual. This one is from 5 hours ago, coming out of global news, where SpaceX employees visited a Saskatchewan farm to collect the company's fallen space junk. Now, as it turns out, this guy reached a settlement. We looked at this story weeks ago when SpaceX's space junk fell on this man's farm in Canada. Apparently, he's reached a settlement with the company and is now returning it.
Doesn't really matter one way or the other. It was sitting over there.
That was Barry Sawchuk's reaction to having fragments of a spacecraft sitting in his workshop for months. Sawchuk says that the experience has been educational, but he's happy to put it behind him.
At the end of it all, it belonged to somebody. Life goes on the farm. Life never stops.
Two men who confirmed that they were with SpaceX arrived to take away the debris, but remained tight-lipped.
We are with SpaceX, and I'm afraid we're not allowed to make any statements.
Only to confess a little later that that piece of space debris is going home.
We're just taking it back to our offices.
Do you want some donuts before you go?
Thank you.
She's not a reporter. You can totally. I'm not a reporter. I'm an astronomer.
Samantha Lawler, associate professor of astronomy with the U of R, says that there are real dangers.
An astronomy professor came with donuts. Amazing.
To falling space junk.
Literally falling in my backyard. It's crazy. It's crazy. And it just shows how common this is becoming. That there will be a lot more space junk falling like this. It will cause damage. It will cause deaths. It needs to be better regulated.
Lawler says the landscape of space exploration is changing so fast that it's hard to advise people on what to do if they find junk on their property. As for Sawchuk, he wouldn't say how much he was paid for returning the space junk, but he does plan to put his money toward a rink in Ituna.
If I were him, I'd be like, ah, boy, yeah, you want this space junk back, huh? I wonder what Virgin Galactic would pay for this, or what's the other one? Blue Phallus? No, Blue Sky. I forget the name of Jeff Bezos' company. Blue Origin. That's it. Blue Origin. That's right. Either way, Eddie, I try to get as much money out of that motherfucker Elon. Yeah, exactly. You get it. Okay. Now on to global news. Starting today in Europe immediately. This is from 14 hours ago from Democracy Now! According to them, a clear shift towards the far right in the EU's most recent elections. Anti-immigrant nationalists gaining ground, among other sorts of sentiments.
In Europe,
Residents of 27 countries went to the polls this weekend for the European Union's parliamentary elections. With nearly 400 million eligible voters, the EU elections are among the world's biggest democratic polls, which are held every 5 years. This year's results ended in a strong showing for the far right across much of the European Union, while many Liberals and Green parties stumbled. Most of the far-right gains were concentrated in countries that elect large number of seats to the EU Parliament: France, Italy, and Germany. Incoming lawmakers can veto and shape laws, though they cannot introduce them. They also set the EU's budget and approve the selection of the European Commission president, a powerful role currently held by Ursula von der Leyen of the center-right European People's Party. And despite the far-right surge across much of the EU, the European People's Party was the biggest single winner on Sunday, remaining the strongest group in the European Parliament. On Monday, EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen spoke in Berlin about the vote.
This election on European soil had two basic messages. Firstly, there is still a majority in favor of a strong Europe in the center of the political spectrum. In other words, the center has held. But it is also true that the extremes on the left and on the right have gained support. And that is why this result is also associated with a great responsibility.
I love how she considers herself the center. In fact, she's got some pretty wild sort of views on things.
For the parties in the center.
The election results triggered a political earthquake in France, where Marine Le Pen's far-right National Rally Party won 30% of the vote, more than double President Emmanuel Macron's Renaissance Party. In a surprise move, President Macron responded by dissolving the French Parliament and calling.
Yeah, and we were talking about this yesterday. It's freaking wild. And to be honest, I didn't even quite understand it until more recently. But he basically just completely dissolved the entire lower house of France's government. Like, if you can imagine it as being analogous to like the House of Representatives in the United States, where he just completely just wiped the slate. I didn't even know that they could do that, first off, but he just wiped the entire slate clean and called for elections across the entire lower house of France's government. Pretty freaking wild decision. Now, he believes that it will wind up playing out well for him and his party, but it's a very, what's the word? I guess bold move is I guess a word you could use in this case. Either way, it may have serious implications going down the line.
Snap legislative elections in France, which will be held in 3 weeks. In Belgium, the prime minister resigned after his party suffered heavy losses. In Germany, Chancellor Olaf Scholz's Social Democratic Party suffered a crushing defeat, coming in third behind the far-right Alternative for Germany, which scored its best results in history with 16% of the vote. In Italy, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's far-right Brothers of Italy party surged to first place in Italy, getting nearly 30% of the vote. In Austria, the far-right Freedom Party was also forecast to finish first. For more, we go to London to speak with...
Seriously, though, this is a very disturbing fucking trend happening across Europe. A lot of it is seemingly being spurred on by anti-immigrant sentiment. I do think what is fueling that fire underneath it, which most places, most media organizations are completely unwilling to even unpack, is the fact that, you know, late-stage capitalism is causing a lot of people to be, you know, susceptible to these kinds of ideologies right now, because people aren't doing that great.
Khan. She's the economics editor at The Times in London and a former Brussels and EU correspondent for the Financial Times. Welcome to Democracy Now!, Mehreen. It's great to have you with us. Can you just start off with the overall trend in Europe, and then specifically talk about what's happened in France?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on the show, Amy. I'm a big fan. So as you've already mentioned, there's been two major consequences from these elections. One is a drift towards the far right in the composition of the European Parliament, and then this very unexpected political and potentially constitutional crisis in France. To start off with the sort of European landscape, I think it's worth stressing to the listeners and to the audience that having huge surges of one party is quite difficult in the European Parliament, because you have 27 elections which are often run on domestic agendas in 27 different countries, which are all at different points in their political cycle. But what we can say is that the two biggest member states of the European Union, in France and Germany, there has been a clear shift towards the right, and that's the far right in terms of the AfD, a party which used to be based around Eurosceptic and anti-Euro ideals, but has moved definitively towards anti-migration, anti-Islam, sort of classic pop.
Yeah, and we've actually been looking at some of these stories in Germany where the AfD has been, you know, not even loosely, but kind of directly affiliated with some very fascist sort of groups, almost, you know, sort of neo-Nazi-esque type of groups, and it's very disturbing.
This nativist culture wars in Germany, and similarly the same has happened among Marine Le Pen with her Front National party, now known as a Rassemblement National. So they've had a rebranding in recent years to make them seem, I think, a bit more political palatable to French voters. I think on the European scale, immediately nothing will change, and that's because it's very hard in aggregate to get huge swings towards one part of the political spectrum. There is a sort of received wisdom that the centre has held, and that's because the three main parties who made the coalition that supported Ursula von der Leyen in 2019 are still likely to have a majority. But I think looking at the aggregate actually ignores what's going on at a slightly deeper level, and I think more substantive level, where the centre-right parties, the Christian Democrat parties of Europe, led by the likes of the CDU in Germany, have definitely moved towards the space that was occupied by the far right. There's been a clear rightward drift on climate policy, so backlash against green activism, a clear move towards stronger anti-immigration policies, and a rhetoric around culture wars, around Christianity, around Israel, around foreign policy, the role of European civilization, which means that these formerly centre-right parties are now definitely occupying territory that we used to call that of the far right. So in that sense, is the incremental shift of the European parliaments towards the right is not just because of...
Now, Marine Le Pen, who is essentially the main challenger to Emmanuel Macron in France, and is essentially like the leader of the National Rally, which is the party they're talking about being the most far-right party in France, essentially. And she's been quoted as saying some absolutely wild things about, quote-unquote, multiculturalism in France, how it has failed, how... France needs to be de-Islamized, calling for moratoriums on legal immigration. And I mean, I think I've heard her say some absolutely disgusting things about like homeless people. I can't recall any of the specifics. I have tried to keep up with French sort of issues, and like most of what she says is just wildly fucked, right? Like she genuinely holds some of the worst possible positions on everything you could think of. And it's disturbing that it's somehow gaining popularity in France. And, you know, I feel like if the people that are supposed to be opposing this stuff would deal with inequality and deal with some of these other sorts of issues, the environment and things, people would be less likely to be caught up in these kinds of just ridiculously hateful ideologies. Hold on, we can't listen to this whole fucking thing. It's like 30 minutes. I guess it's not that long, but...
insurgent far right, but also because of the mainstream parties. And then if we move on to...
Is Buddy Jesus on a Raptor with a pride flag an option now? Absolutely. Buddy Jesus on a Raptor is in play. How many likes do we even have right now? We have 30. I know we had 30. 37. Oh my god, we're getting close.
I think this is the most unexpected political earthquake to have come from any European elections to have ever held since 1979, which is that they've basically created a domestic political crisis in one of European Union's most important countries, France. And Emmanuel Macron looked at the results and decided that he wanted to confront the far right in quite a binary way, holding an election where most of his rivals have very little time to prepare, to mobilize or to organize. And his bet seems to be that if French voters are given a choice, a very clear choice between his party and Marine Le Pen's far right, that they will choose him. And even if they don't, the possibility of having a far-right prime minister for the next couple of years before the more important presidential election in 2027, he thinks that they will do such a bad job in office that it will become clear to French voters by 2027 that this is a party that is not fit for governance.
That's an even more repugnant sort of calculation to make, to say that, hey, even if we do lose, oh, they'll do such a bad job. They'll ruin the country so much. We'll get it back. Oh my God. This seems wildly irresponsible.
This is a party of incompetent, unprofessional cadres, and they're not ready to run France and therefore consolidate his own power base.
And Marine Khan, I wanted to ask you, in terms of the vote, the rise especially of the far right parties, to what degree the battle over immigration and migrants from the global south, very much like the United States, where immigration has become a huge issue in the current presidential race, to what degree do you see the potential for these extreme right parties to continue to grow as they try to mobilize their populations against the migrants coming in?
Well, I think there is a clear parallel with the United States, and I would say that parallel is that rather than being a contested area, migration is an area which there is huge amounts of consensus from the left, the right, and the far right, that Europe is a continent that is closed, whose borders are closed. I think the push towards having anti-immigration policies, so tough immigration policies that stop people, as you've already mentioned, from the global south coming in, that this also includes laws around refugees and asylum seekers. The European Union has probably decided since 2015 that it is a continent that does not want these people in its country.
Yeah, and not only is it deeply racist, it's also a problem that was created by the very people complaining about it. Maybe not, each and every one of them, but I'm just saying Europe, right? The Europe that is saying, do not come here, are the very people who went to those same countries, took their resources by force, indebted them with, all sorts of, predatory loans from whatever, like the IMF or the World Bank. They destroyed the climate, causing many people to have to flee areas that are now underwater or just unlivable, and then said, no, but you can't come here, though. That's out of the question. You're too brown. Okay. Now, let's move along a little bit here. Not quite leaving the EU. I just want to watch this again after the closing of the voting at the EU. At least I'm trying to remember which specific countries voting had ended, but an orchestra came to play outside of the European Parliament at a protest against the rise of the extreme right in the EU government.
And we just have a simple message for all Europeans. It's time to unite and fight against the extreme right. They are coming for everything that we care about. So if you fight to protect the planet, if you fight for women's rights, if you fight for whatever thing you're fighting for, that must become also a fight against extreme right. This must be the wake-up call.
Unfortunately, that sentiment did not carry over to changing the elections. But it is a sentiment that has to continue to live on. Classic psychopath create the problem, then you know, just do what psychos do. Yeah. Like blame everybody else. Gaslighting them into thinking it's a problem they caused. Just throwing out ideas. Alright, let's move to Africa. We got a few things to discuss here. All stuff we've talked about in the past, but we do have some updates on all of this. This was actually a welcome. This particular piece of news was very welcome. When I saw this one, I was very glad to see this. This is from 9 hours ago. Now, what this will mean, I do not know, but the actual just doing it at least starts a process into this. This is from Reuters. According to them, the ICC is now investigating war crimes in Sudan. Now, you've been talking about the ethnic cleansing, the fighting, the starvation happening to millions and millions and millions of Sudanese people. So it's about time, I would say.
The International Criminal Court's chief prosecutor is urgently investigating allegations of war crimes and crimes against humanity in Sudan's Al-Fasher. The Darfur city has become a new front in the conflict between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. On Tuesday, Karim Khan called for anyone with possible evidence, including audio and visual material, to submit it to his office.
The evidence...
Wait, hold on. We got 40 likes. This is wild. Okay, hold on. What's that? 12? Who's 12? Ooh, is that 12? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. George Carlin is 12. Alright, we're going to get George Carlin in here, looking over the shoulder of Astrid Farnsworth. Directly into our souls.
Audio and visual material to submit it to his office.
The evidence my office has collected to date seems to show credible, repeated, expanding, continuous allegations of attacks against the civilian population, in particular, attacks directed against camps for internally displaced persons. It seems to show the widespread, prevalent use of rape and other forms of sexual violence. It seems to disclose...
Now, one thing I'm wondering whether or not he will be investigating, as this is the ICC chief prosecutor right here, is about the Rwandan forces that have been going in and also attacking Sudanese camps. I think it's been in the Sudan as well, right? Wait, no, was this the DRC? Either way.
Consistently, the shelling of civilian areas, the looting of properties, and attacks against hospitals. I am particularly concerned by the ethnically motivated nature of these attacks against the Masalit and other communities.
Al-Fasher is home to more than 1.8 million residents and displaced people. But some 130,000 have fled their homes there, according to the United Nations, as a result of fighting in April and May. On Sunday, medical NGO Doctors Without Borders said Al-Fasher's main hospital had been attacked by the RSF and put out of
Jesus
service.
Christ.
The RSF, which did not respond to a request for comment, has taken over
Oh, really? The RSF didn't have anything to say. I'm shocked.
much of
I
Western
am shocked.
Sudan. The 14-month-old war has created the world's largest displacement crisis, and at the end of May,
Seriously.
UN agencies warned of an
Considering what's going on in Gaza, it should be impossible to create a larger displacement crisis, and yet somehow they've done it in Sudan. I don't know. Must be the Texas of Africa or something. Just got to do everything the biggest. Well, I gotta say, in this particular circumstance, might not want to go for that medal. Just gonna point that out. Seriously though, it's about time that somebody at least looked into this. We've been talking about it ad nauseum. At least my frustration with the Western media not going to Sudan to document what's happening and to speak to people who are in these refugee camps. Oh, God. Some humans are really bad at humaning, so true. Don't thank me, BCat. Don't thank me. Thank chat. Thank chat. Chat's the one that did it. I didn't give you 40 likes. I just rolled the dice and gave you your very much deserved George Carlin. Now, let's move on to this. We talked about this yesterday. I said I would give you an update. Well, here is the update. We spoke yesterday about how the vice president of Malawi was on a plane and then mysteriously disappeared. It has now been confirmed by Al Jazeera 10 hours ago that the Malawi vice president was actually killed in a plane crash.
The search and rescue operation I ordered to find the missing plane that carried our vice president and 9 others has been completed, and the plane has been found. And I am deeply saddened and sorry to inform you all that it has turned out to be a terrible tragedy. The search and rescue team has found the aircraft near a hill in the Chikangawa forest, and they have found it completely destroyed with no survivors, as all passengers on board were killed on impact. Despite the track...
Yeah, and so, according to the president here, which is the man talking in front of you, the pilots were all incredibly experienced and well trained, and yet this happened, and it's very strange. There's been a lot of plane crashes recently, helicopter crashes, things like that, and a lot of them have happened to have some important people in them. I also made the cutouts. Okay, and I ran the election. Okay, I will take credit for both of those things. I did do both of those. I accept your thanks, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you all. That's why I do these things. Okay, let's go on to this. Further south in Africa, South Africa, if you're not aware, had just had an election which was historical in the sense that it really shook up the political dynamic in the country, causing the ANC to lose its historic majority. Now, this is complicated. Okay, so if you're not aware, there's a man by the name of Jacob Zuma who used to be the elected ANC president. He was accused of a number of improprieties and corruption related things. Eventually was ousted from the party, started his own party, and they actually won a number of seats in this election somehow. And according to Reuters, from 13 hours ago, Jacob Zuma tried to block South Africa's first parliament sitting after having finished the election. Let's go to this.
Former South African President Jacob Zuma's political party is trying to block Parliament's first sitting since last month's election. Umkhonto we Sizwe, or MK, said on Tuesday it had filed an application to that effect in the Constitutional Court. South Africa's newly elected National Assembly is due to convene on Friday for the swearing-in of lawmakers and the elections of its Speaker and Deputy Speaker, as well as the country's president. But MK, which came a surprisingly strong third in the May 29th election, has alleged vote rigging took place and threatened to boycott Parliament.
Wow. Sounds like
The Independent
some
Electoral
familiar
Commission
stuff.
and other parties have said the election was free and fair.
Trying to think.
South Africa also does not have a history of significant voter fraud.
Yeah, no kidding.
The election saw the African National Congress, Zuma's long-time political home, lose its parliamentary majority for the first time since it came to power at the end of apartheid 3 decades ago.
Okay. So yeah. I mean, I wouldn't personally, if I were you, take very much from the claims made by Jacob Zuma about the elections being rigged. Very Trumpian move, if you ask me. Okay, let's go to Asia really quickly here. If you somehow missed it yesterday, we talked about it then. I think we also talked about it a couple of times in the last month. But if you're unaware, there has been a balloon war between South and North Korea. Those balloons containing either poop or trash from North Korea, or sort of South Korean propaganda and media like BTS CDs and other sort of K-pop related stuff being sent from South Korea. This balloon war, unexpected, at least from me, has actually turned into more sort of stuff and tensions sort of resuming between South and North Korea. If you missed it yesterday, the South Korean leader decided to dissolve the 8-year-long deal between North and South Korea that had been there to essentially stop the sort of over-the-border tensions that have been going on for decades before.
You're live with BBC News. We turn now to the Korean Peninsula, where the US and South Korea have been discussing how to deal with nuclear threats from Pyongyang. Well, the Nuclear Consultative Group finalized its guidelines that spell out how to deter North Korea from a nuclear attack and how Washington and Seoul should respond to any possible strike. Well, they've agreed to test the strategy during joint drills this summer, and it comes as a propaganda battle escalates on the border involving trash-filled balloons and blaring loudspeakers on both sides. Well, for more, let's speak to Sue Thompson, Associate Professor at the National Security College for the Australian National University. Thank you very much for your time here on Newsday. Well, South Korea and the US working on that joint strategy. What, in your opinion, have been the highlights for you so far from the meeting?
Highlights, well, the United States has reaffirmed its commitment to support South Korea and support the integration of South Korean defence with United States nuclear capability. What's also quite interesting is that the United States has come out and said in any event of an attack from the North Korea against South Korea, there will be, quote, United States Department of Defense says, quote, there'll be overwhelming and decisive response, which is quite interesting as well. And this, of course, as you said in your lead-in, is coming at a time of increased propaganda tensions between the North and the South. And so it's going to be an interesting summer ahead.
Yes, and if I could pick a little bit on the specifics, well, joint drills focused on...
And literally, this summer is just about to get hotter. You know, I'm not even speaking metaphorically here. Like, we've been talking about just literally how hot the summer is going to get. And the fact is humans also run hot when it's hot outside. That's just kind of facts right there. And I don't like where we're headed right now at all with anything. Wait, is there anything that the stream? I'm happy with that. Happy with that. So, small W.
Nuclear simulations is one aspect of the agreement. There's also talk of deploying nuclear submarines. Would you say there is a possible risk for pushback from Pyongyang, or how is Pyongyang likely to view these developments?
I think Pyongyang will view these developments as quite,
Wait, are we still talking about the plane? Oh. Well, I'll address it because it was only like one video back. But the plane looked older, and it looked like a smaller plane. From at least the footage of it, it looked maybe post World War II, but did not look like a very new plane. Maybe I'm just ill-equipped to answer this question, and it was wreckage, so it's a little hard to actually discern. But from what I saw, it looked like maybe 6-passenger max plane.
With concern, I think there is potential of pushback.
Actually,
whether it would ever go.
It might have even been smaller than that. Like if you're counting pilot and co-pilot, I think it might have been 6 people max.
To any sort of escalation is not sure about that, because of course that's quite that would get to quite a serious point. The United States and South Korea have been in a mutual defense treaty since 1953, since the armistice in the Korean War. So, that there has always been those military connections, and the United States forces have been stationed in South Korea. So how far Pyongyang will go is unsure. A lot of people see Kim Jong-un as a, not a very reliable character in terms of what his motivations might be. With this balloon incident, Kim Jong-un's sister just recently came out and expressed how it was a serious incident and it could escalate. So, tensions are heightening in this situation.
You mentioned in your first answer that this was also Washington's way of affirming their commitment to South Korea's defense.
Okay, so yeah, this balloon war really unexpectedly, at least from my perspective, has escalated into discussions of nuclear war. That is literally the last thing I would have expected. Okay. But yeah, no, I'm just not a fan of the sort of recent developments around this. Did not take long for this to turn into something completely different. I'm hoping that we can avoid any kind of war with South and North Korea. That would be just dramatically fucked for the entire Asian continent, considering some of the geopolitical implications of that and the other things that are going on vis-a-vis, I don't know, Russia, Taiwan, China, Taiwan, Russia, Ukraine. It just doesn't feel good. Not to mention the Middle East, which we are about to mention. So let's go to that. This is from a day ago from Democracy Now! We already watched part of this yesterday. I just wanted to rewatch a tiny portion of it. This is discussing the strike, the attack that killed
Hong Kong's
nearly 300 people. And this
news is funded.
Sorry, stop. Stop myself. Okay. Just want to quickly look at this. This is Democracy Now! They had on the spokesperson for the American Islamic League. I forget the name of the organization. He came on and slammed the Israeli military for the massacre of 300 Palestinians in order to get back 4 hostages
By viewers like you. Please support our work at democracynow.org/give. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. For more on the Israeli attack on the Nuseirat refugee camp that freed 4 Israeli hostages and killed at least 274 Palestinians, wounding about 700 people, we're joined by Omar Badar, a Palestinian-American political analyst, member of the National Policy Council of the Arab American Institute. He's joining us from Washington, D.C. If you can overall respond to what took place, and then, because you're in D.C., Omar, talk about the Biden administration response.
Sure. Amy, there's no question that what unfolded in that operation is a massacre. I mean, we've seen just the bodies of hundreds of people littered everywhere, including the bodies of children. We've seen absolutely horrific scenes at the hospitals of weeping parents and bloody children. I mean, to look at a death toll of this scale and then to celebrate this kind of operation as some sort of success, you would basically have to openly say that the lives of Israelis are more valuable than the lives of Palestinians.
Okay, that's really all I wanted from that. It's just
arguably the greatest work of nonfiction of the 20th century.
Or the 21st century, I guess now we're in. But seriously, that is the mindset you have to accept that death toll for those 4 hostages. It was a Dornier 228 type twin propeller plane that was in service since 1988. Okay. So it sounds like I was pretty close. Post World War II, definitely still old. That's like 36 years old or something. And it's a twin prop plane. So yeah, I was close. I was pretty close with my guess. Stephen K. falling asleep, no big deal. You fall asleep. I'm glad that you got to check out at least a portion of the stream. Of course, there's always the video available, although at some point I may start making the older videos Patreon only videos. I'm not sure how I'm gonna do that. I've been considering doing that. I don't know if that's gonna be my strategy though. But for now, the video will always be on YouTube for you to rewatch later. Okay, now let's get into this in terms of what's been happening over the last 24 hours. We'll start with this. Yeah. Let's go to the UN Security Council, where, if you're unaware, they backed the U.S.-Israeli Gaza ceasefire plan. The only abstaining country was Russia, and this is BBC News to talk a little bit about that vote. Whoa. There we go. Yeah.
We begin with the war in Gaza. The United States is making a major push to pause fighting in the Strip, with diplomatic efforts taking place both in the region and at the United Nations. The UN Security Council endorsed a ceasefire proposal for Gaza on Monday, and it's the first time the Council has passed a resolution demanding a stop in fighting after 8 months of war. The resolution urges both Hamas and Israel to fully and quickly implement the 3-phase plan. 14 countries voted in favour and Russia abstained. A US ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, says the resolution shows Hamas that the international community is united.
Colleagues, today this council sent a clear message to Hamas. Accept the ceasefire deal on the table. Israel has already agreed to this deal, and the fighting could stop today if Hamas would do the same.
The fighting could have stopped multiple times if the United States had backed, I don't know, how many UN resolutions was it? Like at least 3. And we abstained or actually not abstained, we vetoed so many of those, literally every single one of those. We've been sort of instrumental in providing Israel the weapons to continue the killing and the genocide that's happening in front of us. Just the suggestion somehow that it's all Hamas's Well, actually, we'll see later. Let's just let's keep going.
I repeat, the fighting could stop today.
Linda Thomas Greenfield there. Well, the vote came as the U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, is visiting the Middle East. It's the 8th time he's been to the region since the October the 7th attacks. Mr. Blinken is fiercely advocating for the ceasefire deal proposed by President Biden 10 days ago. As part of that effort, he's met the Egyptian...
You know, I find it funny because, yeah, it's been 10 days since that deal was proposed. In that 10 days, Israel's seemingly killed at least, like, nearly 1,000 Palestinians. Most of them were, maybe it's not that many, but it's been a lot. They've attacked multiple tent encampments where refugees are hiding out, and yeah, it's just wild that somehow the United States, by way of our UN ambassador, are trying to tell everybody that it's Hamas. This obviously it's not just her; it's also Antony Blinken. So let's go to him now. Hold on. Gotta find this nice video. Okay, yeah. All right, Blinken.
Now, America's top diplomat Antony Blinken is in Israel as part of a 3-day tour of the Middle East in an effort to boost support for a ceasefire in Gaza. It's the U.S. Secretary of State's 8th trip to the region since the war between Israel and Hamas began last October. The visit comes as the United States asked the UN Security Council to vote on a draft resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. It's also calling for the release of the hostages still held by the group. Earlier, Mr. Blinken told reporters in Cairo that Egypt has been speaking with Hamas as recently as today.
The only party that has not accepted, the only party that's not said yes, is Hamas.
That's just a lie. That's just factually inaccurate, right? I mean, not only can we very clearly say that Israel has turned down practically every ceasefire deal it's seen, aside from the first one that actually happened. What was it? It was shortly after. Was it after Ramadan? I can't remember the exact timing of it. I think it was in December, I want to say. But yeah, the fact is the second that the deal came out, so the second that Biden made the speech, Israel came out saying, whoa, we didn't come up with this deal. This is crazy. This is not our work. And it's like, okay, so anyways, there's more to, but let's listen to this.
Everyone,
things have
the Palestinians.
Things have changed since he made this speech. I'm just going to point this out.
In Gaza are waiting on. It's who the Israelis are waiting on. It's who the hostages and the hostage families are waiting on. Does Hamas want to end this conflict, end this war that it started, or not? We'll find out. But it's clear that virtually the entire world has come together in support of the proposal.
Aside from Israel. But yeah, okay. Let's move on to this. This is Marwan Bashara on Al Jazeera from earlier today. After the UN vote, after the UN voted to approve the Gaza ceasefire proposal, he came on the air to say that the U.S. must ensure that Israel complies with this this deal, or with this UN proposal, because it's now been agreed upon by all of the nations, aside from Russia, who just abstained, which is basically saying, okay, that'll like, and so now we are really the ones that need to essentially enforce it with our supposed best buddies in the region.
Jordan is hosting an emergency conference to coordinate the humanitarian response to Israel's war on Gaza. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is expected to attend, and he's likely to hold talks.
It's not a war. It's a good point. And I feel like I have to say it like every other sentence once I get to the Middle East. Like even Al Jazeera is calling it a war. Did you hear him? Like it's difficult to keep everybody on the right page.
Several regional leaders, including Jordan and Egypt. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says more humanitarian aid needs to be allowed in.
All available routes into Gaza must be operational, and the land routes are absolutely crucial. I also welcome all coordinated efforts to fully operationalize the mechanism to facilitate aid into Gaza as mandated by Security Council Resolution 2720.
The international humanitarian response in Gaza has been severely lacking, with the delivery of aid facing obstacles.
Absolutely. Hold on though. Let's move forward in this video just slightly.
I don't know how much of Antony Blinken's statement you were able to hear, but I actually want to take you back to something that was said by King Abdullah of Jordan. Jordan, of course, one of the hosts of this conference. Right at the start of this conference, he said, the people of Gaza are not looking to us for platitudes and speeches. They need action. And in many ways, that sums up exactly the problem that this conference is going to face. There's a lot of good intention, if you like. Making it happen is going to be very difficult.
Yes, I think he's correct. But nonetheless, that's what we have, a whole bunch of speeches. And of course, a bit too little and a bit too late for the people of Gaza. Most of those who are there in Amman, of course, have done not that much for the people of Gaza. Certainly, they didn't do enough to stop the war on Gaza. But he's also correct to say that humanitarian aid should not be conditional to a ceasefire. That, in his words, aid should start flowing in, medical and other humanitarian aid, regardless of what date the actual official ceasefire is reached. So in a sense, the necessity to end the war, the necessity to save the millions in Gaza from the wrath of Israeli war is, never more important than today. Yes, I did hear, Rob, I did hear the Secretary of State, of course, as usual, rolling my eyes endlessly. I'm worried about my eyes as I roll them endlessly, listening to Blinken.
Yeah, I mean, every time I listen to Anthony Blinken, I find myself rolling my eyes.
Something surrealistic about listening to an American president recounting the disaster that Gaza has become, the destruction of hospitals and schools, the death of people, entire families, as if they were not killed by American ammunition, as if the United States did not block every attempt at an immediate and permanent ceasefire the past 8 months.
Exactly.
But be that as it may, now we all learned the lesson once again that when it comes to America, it's either America's way or the highway. That in as far as America is concerned, American might is right and everything else is wrong. And hence, until America passed its own resolution, taking in consideration a good number of points by other countries, including the Algerians and apparently the Russians and the Chinese, the resolution has passed. And
I didn't realize
Hamas
China
has
and
welcomed it.
Algeria also.
And yet,
I missed that.
The Secretary of State continues to emphasize that now it's only up to Hamas and that everyone needs to pressure Hamas to accept a ceasefire. When in fact,
seriously,
in fact, not according to my opinion, Hamas and others in Gaza have died for a ceasefire. They have always been, for the past 8 months, dying for a ceasefire to take place. So if anything, the people in Gaza, including Hamas, want a ceasefire more than anyone else, including the United States and Israel.
Seriously. And since I already read the title, you know what he winds up saying, that the the U.S. must uphold the UN proposal, which has now been approved by the requisite number of nations. Now let's go on, because he was speaking before this happened, where Hamas has now signaled readiness to negotiate the Gaza truce. This is from Reuters from 4 hours ago. Although this happened a little bit before that. I think it happened about, a couple hours after after Marwan did this interview. It was probably like 10 hours ago now. But yeah, Hamas has signaled its readiness to negotiate.
A senior Hamas official said on Tuesday the Palestinian militant group had accepted a United Nations-backed ceasefire resolution and is ready to negotiate details, a move the U.S. called a hopeful sign.
No kidding.
Qatari and Egyptian
Okay.
mediators said they had received a formal reply from Hamas to the truce proposal, and Hamas and its ally, Palestinian Islamic Jihad...
I'm shocked that American representatives didn't curse out loud upon hearing of that, because that really kind of goes against the narrative that somehow it's Hamas that doesn't want peace.
issued a joint statement on Tuesday expressing, quote, readiness to positively reach a deal to end the war in Gaza. The UN Security Council approved U.S. President Joe Biden's proposal for a truce on Monday. Biden's proposal would pause fighting in the Gaza Strip and facilitate the return of Israelis held hostage by Hamas, ultimately leading to an end to the war.
We have the prospect of an immediate ceasefire.
Okay, we already listened to this. Now let's go on to further discuss this. As there's even more to talk about. So, this is from 9 hours ago from Al Jazeera English. According to them, Hamas and Islamic Jihad have both submitted ceasefire responses to the mediators.
You're watching Al Jazeera. I want to tell you straight away about some breaking news that has just come in. We are told, sources have told Al Jazeera, that Hamas has submitted its response to the U.S. outlined ceasefire proposal. That's coming as Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad group issued a joint statement expressing readiness to reach a deal. Now, according to sources, they have made some amendments. The amendments include a withdrawal from the entire Gaza Strip, including the Rafah crossing and the Philadelphia corridor. We'll try and get you more details as they come in, and then we'll share them with you. At this juncture, I want to bring in our guest, James Elder. He is a UNICEF spokesperson, and he joins us live from Deir el-Balah in Gaza. James, grateful to have you with us. You're back in Gaza. How would you describe the situation?
Hell on earth, Layla. After what happened over the weekend, to be today in Al-Aqsa Hospital, which was already packed, already beyond capacity last week, and then to have 400 people with these horrendous wounds of war come in the space of an hour. So again today, walking around with a doctor, with these incredible physicians who are doing 24-hour shifts, we're walking over children with these wounds of war on the floor, you know, with head injuries, because the capacity has just been absolutely devastated. It felt like it could have been day one of this horrendous war on children. It is, of course, day 250.
Yeah.
And then to leave the hospital, and of course, all we see is rubble. I walked outside, and there is a lady who's in tears because her family home has been destroyed, her husband's killed, and she just wants a tent. Layla, as you and your viewers know, these stories are everywhere, but they're relentless, and that's why we hope this talk of a ceasefire for those people in power who seem, to be honest, utterly disconnected from the suffering of the civilians of Gaza. Hopefully now this is that moment, because people...
Seriously, though, I feel like we've been expecting this moment to come much, 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 much sooner than it has, even if it even is that moment. It still is unclear whether or not Israel is actually accepting this deal, what it will will happen with regards to the permanent ceasefire, or whether Israel will just return to its project of ethnically cleansing all Palestinians from the river to the sea. And it is it's about time that actual pressure was put on Israel by the United States, as you know, we are the main contributor to Israel.
And I want to go now to Imran Khan, who is in the Jordanian capital, Amman, just to get some more on that breaking news that we've been telling you about. Imran, I understand you're joining us on the phone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I've got you.
Imran, so as we've just broke the news that Hamas has submitted its response to the U.S. outlined ceasefire proposal, what are you hearing from your side?
Well, what Hamas sources have told Al Jazeera is they are ready and have submitted a response to the proposed ceasefire deal to the Qatari and Egyptian mediators. This is a joint statement that they have released. So it's now very clear that they are willing to negotiate. Earlier in the day, we heard from a Hamas official after the resolution news had broken in the Security Council that Hamas were willing to send negotiators. This is now a step forward to that. They've responded to the Egyptians and the Qataris. Hamas are now ready to do something that will get to a ceasefire. The ball is now in Israel's court. Remember the original ceasefire deal that Biden put forward? He always said, this is the Israeli ceasefire deal.
He certainly did.
Israel was quite surprised by that. And
yeah.
What Israel said was, we are willing to perhaps commit to the first phase of this, which is an original 6-week ceasefire deal, and then the release of captives. But what Antony Blinken has done for the last 4 days is talk about the idea that this is on Hamas. Hamas need to respond. Hamas need to do something. This is on Hamas.
Yep.
Well, this is now
I've been hearing that
Hamas's
narrative
response.
over and over and over again, and it's kind of nice to see it flipped on its head, kind of exposing the hypocrisy here. But I'm really hoping that this sort of sequence of events puts Israel in a hot seat that it has not had to sit in during this entire situation, where it is made readily apparent that they are the ones who have been holding up the peace process. Maybe once again some over-optimism from yours truly, but that's kind of my current feeling about it. Okay, what else do we have to talk about? Okay, yeah. So, like, 4 hours after that Marwan Bashara interview talking about how the U.S. needed to ensure that Israel complies with the UN-approved Gaza ceasefire proposal, he came back on to Al Jazeera to talk about how it was incredibly important that both Hamas and Islamic Jihad were on board for the ceasefire negotiations. Figured we would look at this as well. How many stories do we have left? We're getting close to the end.
Your reaction. Let's get the take from Marwan Bashara, Al Jazeera's senior political analyst. He comes to us from Paris. Let's get your reaction to this breaking news of Hamas submitting its response to this outlined, this U.S. ceasefire proposal.
That's certainly a positive, good news that the Hamas decided to engage with the proposal, with the American initiative, based on apparently an Israeli proposal. It comes after Hamas has welcomed the UN Security Council resolution adopting that American proposal, which, as you just outlined, does have 3 phases, but eventually needs to lead to a permanent ceasefire and the withdrawal of all Israeli forces from Gaza. The past 48 hours, we've heard different declarations from various Israeli sources, including to Reuters, saying that this proposal is going to allow Israel to achieve its war objectives, which usually means, in an Israeli newspeak, destroying Hamas. And I think now we see sort of a response from the other side, from the Palestinian, from Hamas side, basically delineating how it sees this proposal moving forward and how it could be implemented in a way that safeguards Palestinian rights in Gaza. And I think so far we haven't seen the full response yet, but I think what is important is for Hamas, apparently, are two things. One, that this proposal needs to move from one phase to another phase, and in the process there would be a ceasefire, and that this proposal does lead to a permanent ceasefire. So this is a clear red line for Hamas, that it's not going to negotiate over release of captives in order for Israel to resume the war.
Exactly.
I think it's probably going to ask for ironclad American.
I was kind of like hinting at that earlier, so because Israel keeps saying that it has to completely destroy Hamas, and has been very vague about what that means. But considering the evidence we have from the last 8 months, and perhaps our intuitions, I think we can pretty clearly get to the arrival that Israel still has the intention to potentially carry this this attack on all of Gaza in perpetuity, and there needs to be more certainty and more clarity that Israel cannot continue what it's been doing. Hold on. Actually, is there more of this I want to listen to? I can't remember. I might listen. This is not very long.
Guarantees for that movement from one phase to another. And second, the way I see it from the initial response is that not only does Hamas wants to see Israel withdraw from the occupied Gaza Strip, but it wants to make sure that Israel is not at the crossings again. As you know, the past couple of weeks, Israel has occupied the Philadelphia corridor to the opposition of both Egypt and the Palestinian Authority, because Israel is not supposed to be there. There's an agreement, in fact, between Israel and Egypt on that issue.
It's kind of, it seems like it's their thing. It seems like it's Israel's thing to do things it's not supposed to do. Right? Am I losing it? Have I gone off the reservation here? Or is it kind of Israel's thing to just look at the rules and say, that doesn't apply to us? Okay. Now, where are we now? Yes. Let's quickly look at this. This is from a couple of days ago, where a Zeppelin was launched in Tel Aviv with the words on it, "Save them now," in both English and in Hebrew, demanding the release of hostages in Gaza.
No doubt about it, for sure. Yes, everything to bring the hostage situation to the top of the public view is crucial at this point. There are many forces trying to hush us down, trying to minimize the voice of, and getting them home now as soon as possible is the most important thing that we can do, and I hope this Zeppelin will raise awareness to this issue, and I pray for the...
Yeah, so I think we all know that many of the protesters in Israel asking for the hostages back still think that Israel's siege on the population of Gaza as being right. However, I have been noticing lately more stop the war signs, which I found interesting. It's not like ubiquitous or like somehow throughout the entire population of Israeli protesters, but I have been seeing those signs more, which I think says a lot about the sort of changing dynamics in Israel right now as they lose the support of most of their former friends, especially in the West. What is left to talk about? Oh, yes, these two things. Okay, first, let's look at this. This is Blinken coming out to call on countries to do more to help Palestinians in Gaza.
Stratford, Al Jazeera.
Zira, it is 13:16 GMT. We're taking you to the Dead Sea Conference Center in Jordan. It's hosting a summit discussing the urgent humanitarian response for Palestinians in Gaza. This is U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
Virtually everyone in Gaza depends on aid to survive. Most of Gaza's sanitation system has been destroyed. Fewer than a dozen of Gaza's 40 hospitals are open. And as we know and have heard, more than 270 humanitarian workers have been killed. One of those humanitarians was...
Listening to Antony Blinken list this stuff off right now is just... I feel like there's like a schism happening in my consciousness, like in my brain right now. And it is very... what's the word? Not ethereal. It's very surreal. It feels very strange listening to Antony Blinken gaslight everybody like it's their fault that these things are happening.
Jamal Abu Kawak, a longtime UNRWA staffer in Gaza who for years was the United States' main local contact, and for many, a friend.
I wonder what he's going to say next.
He was killed last month after evacuating
yeah.
Rafah. He was looking for shelter for his family.
I wonder what country provided the bullets or the bombs that killed him. You know, just thinking out loud. Just wondering, what's the likelihood? Gotta think. It's gotta be high. Anyways, he goes on to say that people need to do more to get food aid to Palestinians who are starving in Gaza. Meanwhile, we've done practically nothing as it relates to... Actually, I feel like we need to listen to more of this garbage, even though I genuinely hate doing this to you and to myself. I do feel like we need to just... Why is it my job to listen to people try to gaslight us? It's very frustrating.
He's survived by his wife and his 4 children. The single most effective step we can take to address the urgent humanitarian challenges in Gaza is to reach an immediate and ultimately enduring ceasefire.
Really?
11 days ago, President Biden set out a comprehensive proposal to do precisely that.
Mm-hmm.
In its first 6 weeks, the proposal would provide for a full ceasefire, the pullback of Israeli forces from all the populated areas of Gaza, the release of a number of hostages, including women.
Okay. Well, I do feel like you're telling us all the things that you haven't been doing for the last how many months? I mean, it's like a big list of stuff that America is kind of the cause of and or not doing enough itself to fix. I mean, talking about like food aid to Palestinians. I mean, we could have pressured Israel, forced Israel to open up the borders to Gaza, get them to stop settlers from attacking those food convoys, things like that. But no, instead we built a $500 million bridge to nowhere off of the Gaza coast that broke weeks after being built and only having delivered a tiny fraction of a single day's worth of food needed for Gazans. Seems like a big waste of money. Okay, let's look at this to kind of hammer home what I'm trying to get to you right now. This is from 4 hours ago, from CBS News of all people, where apparently far-right Israeli settlers are blocking Gaza aid trucks again.
As parts of Gaza experience famine, some extremists are increasing their attacks on aid trucks bound for the territory. MTS Tayeb reports from Tel Aviv, and we want to warn you that some of the images are disturbing.
Yeah. Your coverage
just this
is
week,
disturbing.
the UN reiterated its deep concern that children in Gaza are starving amid what it described as persistent obstacles to accessing humanitarian aid. Now, those obstacles are complex and layered, much of it being blamed on Israel's own policies, with aid organizations complaining of, quote, routine and arbitrary restrictions on legitimate humanitarian goods from entering Gaza, to a phenomenon in recent months which has seen grassroots groups, mainly from the far right, attempting...
A phenomenon. It's been happening not just in the past couple of months. It's been happening practically for the entire quote-unquote conflict, at least from the start of history, October 7th. You know, there's been, this has been happening. It's just CBS hasn't been really paying attention. Let's be real. Their coverage, like I was saying, has been pretty much the worst out of everybody's. Or for them to try and tell us about history right now, I find it laughable.
block aid trucks from entering the Palestinian territory themselves, and even at times destroying the humanitarian goods.
Yeah, not just sometimes.
They're images that have
Frequently.
enraged and horrified.
And so wait, hold on. So CBS did do some amount of journalism here. Let me actually get to the part where they talk about how the Israeli government may very well have been giving settlers the information needed to know when the aid trucks were coming, to know when the borders would be opened, to know everything they would need to know to stop the aid trucks, effectively doing the dirty work for them. Where is this spot? I think it's here.
The window to my truck was open, and a settler came in and sprayed me with pepper spray.
No, this is not the one. Hold on. Where is it? Oh, I think it might be here. Is this it? God damn
it. Gained access to a WhatsApp forum used by one such group called We Won't Forget. It cataloged in detail how many trucks would be in a convoy, what routes they would travel on, and the crossings they moved through on any given day. In this message, members were told explicitly how the information was obtained. It read, methods for blocking acts. We get preliminary info from border crossing workers, police, and soldiers.
Hear that? Israel, the government that's been claiming they are doing absolutely everything to make sure that aid gets to Palestinians, even though we all know that's a lie, is actually not just not doing everything they can, they're doing absolutely everything possible, going all the way up to gaslighting us about having opened the borders, meanwhile providing the very people who are blocking the aid convoys all the information they need to do so.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
Okay, not really a phenomenon at all. No, I know. But CBS has to pretend like this is just starting. Otherwise, they'd look really weird for just bringing it up now. You know what I mean? Like, they've been going months and months not talking about it. So they have to pretend like it's just been happening for like the last month or two. Okay, buddy. You tell yourself that. You tell yourself that. Okay, let's watch this. I haven't even seen this yet, but it came across my feed just as I was about to start the podcast today. So let's watch this comedy from Sammy Obeid from 4 days ago.
Now that you guys like me, I'll go ahead and say it. I'm Palestinian American. Sure, yeah, you booked me. My great grandma was born in Bethlehem. I tell people this like, oh, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania? I'm like, yeah, that's the one for sure, dude. She was Amish. Everybody knows that Jesus is from Bethlehem, right? But most people can't point it out on a map. It's a very complicated geopolitical question. My niece asked me last Christmas, she's 5 years old, where's Bethlehem? I gave her the simplest answer you could as a 5-year-old. I said, well, technically it's in Palestine, specifically the West Bank. It was part of Israel, but they handed over the Palestinian National Authority in 1995 under the interim agreement of Sub.5, Section 2, UN resolution. Of course, before that part of British mandate Palestine, of course, before that part of the Ottoman Empire. You can argue that it still is in Israel technically, of course, because Israel
This is great.
occupies the West Bank. But Israel, of course, would say that's not the truth because that is against international law on many counts. Don't tell the UNJK, they already know. It's really very complicated, but Jesus is from there. Merry Christmas. And that was the simplest answer I gave her. And she's like, well, is Santa Claus real? I'm like, 100% Santa Claus is real. Are you kidding me? Like, what are you getting me for Christmas? I gave you to Palestine. What more do you want? Like, people pay to see my shows. I gave it to you free of charge. She's like, free Palestine? I was like, exactly.
I know we've probably seen this before, but I just thought, yeah, you know, we'd watch it. And honestly, I hadn't even seen it, so I didn't know what it was gonna be. But I thought the animations were great. Totally helped drive the point home. Wonderful. Sammy Obeid. Alright. Well, that's the last, looks like that's the last video. Well, we've made it through another stream, folks. Well done. It was long and arduous, but each and every one of you, just give yourself a pat on the back for having made it this far. That said, got nothing left for you. Till I see you next time. You stay classy, Galactic Stream Nation. Can't forget this. These are your galactic patrons. Gabby, Goth Dogs, Aaron W, Mitty, PB, Robot Cat. Whoopsies. What just happened? Oh, there we go. Aha. What did I say? Robot Cat, Morbius Dragon, the Anti-Corporatist, Moanoip, Nadia, Mrs. Katz, Pitchforks Dragon, Vincent Morales, and Donald James X. That's right. All of these individuals here you see in front of you made the right choice and decided to help produce the show which you're watching right now. You can do the same thing. Receive galactic benefits unseen by the rest of the goddamn galaxy. Just for a few US dollars a month. Clicking this link, chat. Wow, that's a lot of ones. You cleaned your room?
This is from 12 Rules for Life.
Why is the music not starting? Oh. I see. Here we go. To the pool.